testing on English. Test, test.
Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Second console. Good morning.
Portugués. Portugués. Aloha. Hola, hola. Portugués.
Gracias.
Segunda consola. Tudo bem, tudo
Perfecto.
bem. Vamos a francés. Francés.
Muy bien.
Perfecto, segunda consola. Perfecto, muchas
Perfecto.
gracias.
Gracias.
Another day, there is Guatemala coffee outside in case you lose your concentration a bit. This is the place where we do things which matter, I think, for our countries, and I welcome all of you. This is the fourth regular meeting of the second semester of the Inter-American Council for Integral Development for this year. We have the required quorum, and we may proceed with the order of business. Today, in the order of business, in case you did not see it, we will have a dialogue among member states on strengthening regional value change, capacity building for nearshoring, and supply chain management. After the panel, we have a dialogue. You also got a concept note on this theme. And then point 3 on the agenda is the CD sectoral ministerial process cycle. We will deal with culture and education. And there are a number of documents that go with it. Then point 4, we have a signing ceremony of the Memorandum of Understanding of the Undergraduate Student Exchange Program by the OAS with Brazil. And then any other business. That's what we want to accomplish today. And I hope you are in for it. And we also welcome our panelists, and we have a special minister from Uruguay also today with us. Welcome very much. Okay, if there are no objections or comments on the draft order of business, it is approved. So we now go to item 2, which is the dialogue on strengthening regional value change, capacity building for nearshoring and supply chain management. Again, there was a concept note that goes with it, and as you know, we are in a process of 6 of these parts. This is part 4 on trade and everything that has to do with it. In today's evolving global landscape, the reconfiguration of global production change, combined with the growing demand for proximity, reliability, and sustainability, is creating unprecedented opportunities for our hemisphere. To seize them, we must strengthen our collective capacity for nearshoring and build resilient, integrated regional value change that advance inclusive and sustainable development. This dialogue is a chance to reflect on how we are as a community of nations, and can translate the strategic priorities of our member states into concrete partnerships and cooperation mechanisms. By doing so, we can enhance our competitiveness while ensuring that the benefits of economic transformation are broadly shared across all communities. We are invited to explore how investment and trade diversification can be leveraged to strengthen local industries, modernize logistic infrastructure, and align regulatory frameworks to support seamless cross-border production. The intent is to explore how we as member states can work together to develop shared logistics corridors, digital tools, including single windows, to improve efficiency and connectivity. Colleagues, today's discussion will examine how our countries can create an enabling environment for sustainable supply chains and enhance preparedness and competitiveness through coordinated policies. robust public-private collaboration, and a shared commitment to equitable development. To help guide our exchange, we are joined by three distinguished panelists. Our first panelist joining us virtually is Ms. Karina Fernandez-Stark, Senior Fellow at the Duke Center for International Development. Ms. Fernandez-Stark is an internationally recognized expert on global value change and has advised governments, international organizations, and development institutions on strategies to promote economic upgrading and competitiveness. She will share her perspective on the critical institutional and policy conditions needed to strengthen regional production networks and capitalize on nearshoring opportunities. As I give the floor to our first panelist, I want to kindly remind all panelists that they will have 7 minutes each to share their perspectives. And I know it is very short, but the idea is that you will get enough information and we'll get also contact information in case you need more information. And we also have the SEDI, of course, who can help you. Today, before I give the floor to Ms. Fernandez-Stark, I should say that Ms. Kim Osborne is on a mission, but she is well represented by Ms. Barbara Kochwar, our new Director of Economic Development. And I don't know if all of you know her already, but here she is. Thank you. So, Ms. Fernandez-Stark, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you for the invitation. And today, as you mentioned, I'm going to speak about America's competitiveness in global value chains. As we know, changing geopolitical and economic forces are driving the realignment of these global value chains. Over the past 5 years, the world has seen multiple disruptions to global trade, escalating geopolitical tensions, the pandemic, a series of regional armed conflicts are fundamentally reshaping this economic landscape for global investment and sourcing decisions. The convergence of these disruptive trends has fostered a sense of persistent uncertainty, forcing companies to reassess their well established global supply chains. At the same time, the world understanding of global competitiveness is being redefined from one based primarily on profit to one founded also in resiliency, quality, and sustainability. This shift challenges the well entrenched pattern of Asia dominance of VC production. Asia, led by China, has become the most important global production region in almost every industry. China's competitiveness advantage in abundant, low cost labor and natural resources endowment paved the way for the country to become a leading exporter in industries from light manufacturing to heavy industries and commodities. But more recently, continued investment in innovation and technology have contributed to China's emergence as a key player in high value sectors as well, from aerospace and automotive to medical devices and pharmaceuticals, industrial robots, and even semiconductors. It has also gained a strategic control of the supply chains needed for the green transition, not only in final manufacturing, but also in processing the critical minerals needed for the fabrication. Deep capabilities and growing economies of scales across Asia made it impossible for global firms to explore alternatives, and value chains become entrenched in a finely tuned, just in time global supply operations. Asia's leadership is supported by a network of regional trade and investment agreements. Building on the well established Asian Agreement, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership brings together 30% of the global population and 30.5% of the global GDP. This combining 15 countries with a diverse range of GDP per capita and a massive labor force, 1.2 billion, the region is well prepared to perform high and low value activities. Intra-regional trade in Asia was already high and growing rapidly, reaching 60% in 2024. This strategy of leveraging regional strength reflects that of the European Union. In Europe, also, intra-regional trade is already at 68% thanks to the extension of the EU to 27 countries. The accession of Hungary, Poland, and other countries contributed to this greater differentiator in cost and capabilities across the bloc. So this regionalization in Asia and Europe has incorporated countries with diverging and diverse levels of development, allowing regional supply chains to leverage extensive complementarities, diverse capabilities, and cost arbitrage, while acting as a singular bloc in trade negotiation, providing them with a greater market power. But on the contrary, the Americas have diverged over the same period with comparative low intra-regional trade integration. From the year 2000 to 2020, trade between the US and its regional neighbors shrank as North American companies offshore manufacturing activities to Asia, led by cheap, available Asian labor, growing production capabilities, and streamlining trans-Pacific logistics. This strategy yield tremendous return. Yet this strategy has simultaneously undermines the America's resiliency in global value chain. The resulting decline in North American raw materials demand for South America's natural resources was matched by rising interest from Asia. By 2022, South America has become the largest extra-regional supplier of numerous raw materials for Asia's manufacturing machine. Asia established a large scale processing capacity to secure these materials. So, a triangular dependency has ensured where natural resources flow from South America, Asia, where they are manufactured and then sold back to North America. This triangulation has led to low intra-regional trade in the Americas, accounting for only 47% of exports, 13% behind Asia, and 21 behind Europe. The region has been largely relegating to playing a limited role in global value chains. So a unified approach across the Americas would greatly improve the regional competitiveness by combining complementary strengths as Asia and the European Union has done. The Americas unite global market leadership with large and growing low-cost labor force, broad diversity in development levels, ample green energy, and abundant natural resources. The America has a diverse array of GDP per capita and a labor force of more than 500 million. These combined strength position the Americas to advantage of this excellent position, where the US and Canada provide an excellent environment for high value activities such as design and research and development. The Southern Cone, a strong supply of critical raw materials, and those countries closer to the United States, notable manufacturing capabilities in high value sectors. Major, major policy efforts Political will and intense regional collaboration are required to ensure this approach can deliver its promises. Incentivizing value chain development across the Americas can promote competitiveness and resiliency. Yet, participating in GVC is challenging. Competition is fierce and has intensified as countries worldwide vie to take advantage of this reconfiguration. Thus, achieving these goals requires considerable economic vision and political commitment. Significant policy initiatives are necessary in diverse areas, including workforce development, new infrastructure, trade facilitation, and new provisions in trade agreement, and even an America's regional trade agreement. Unless these are addressed, it is unlikely that global corporations will seriously consider relocating major sources operations to the region in the long term. While the cost of this successful regionalization effort is undoubtedly high, the cost of inaction is far more crippling. The US faces the risk of losing its leadership of the global economy, while Latin America risks squandering its natural resources endowment and many more lost decades. So, to accelerate the entry and upgrading of America's countries in GVC, targeted interventions will be needed to boost competitiveness. Policy efforts and investment to improve the human capital, infrastructure, trade agreement and facilitation, environmental and social regulation will be crucial to succeed in global value chain regionalization. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fernandez Stark. This is a very interesting topic and really makes you think. We will come back with some questions at the end of the panel for you, but thank you for the time being. Our second panelist, also joining us virtually, is Mr. Juan Jose Bertero, international expert in strategic services at TBJ Innovation and Sustainable Development. Mr. Bertero has extensive experience in designing innovation, ecosystems, and supporting sustainable industrial policies across Latin America. He will reflect on how innovation, technology, and institutional collaboration can accelerate supply chain resilience and promote sustainable growth. Mr. Bertero, you have the floor.
Buen día.
Good morning, and thank you for the invitation. To start, I wanted to say a few words about public policies. They tend to be focused on a particular sector, which is different from having an approach focused on value chains. And this is not just something to do with the name. This is why I'd like to review briefly what value chains are so that we have a similar understanding and so that this discussion is useful to you. Slide 1. The first slide shows the structure of a value chain. It consists of a main axis and 3 secondary axes. The main axis is the business you're talking about, and it uses resources to produce products. Secondary axis 1 is where you have inputs needed for each link. Axis 2 contains or represents the machines, equipment, maintenance needed for each link. Lastly, axis 3, which is at the top of the slide, represents support services, and by that I mean regulations, infrastructure, technical assistance, innovation, etc. And that's the surrounding environment around the links of the main axis. So this is a complete structure of a value chain, but often and wrongly we focus only on the main axis when we talk about value chains. Next slide. Slide 2 shows the function and influence of each link in improving efficiency within the value chain. The main axis adds value. And when you want to improve efficiency, you have to look at all of the actions that add costs or lead to a loss of profitability when you move the product from one link to the next, for instance, during transportation. There are also many hidden costs in these transactions between the links. Negotiations that take place, for instance, between primary producers and those that deal with industrialization of foods, of food products. There are also pressures that exist that may drive quality down and lead to weaker links. Secondary axis 1 improves efficiency through proximity. It reduces logistics costs and response times. Secondary axis 2 improves efficiency through proximity and the use of local capacity. So logistics costs are lower, response times are faster, and local capacities are used to greater effect. Axis 3 improves efficiency due to conditions in the general environment. And by that I mean innovation, development of services, and competitiveness, generally speaking. Lastly, this value chain structure shows a vast network of links that crosses territories and mobilizes investment, development, and generates jobs beyond the main axis. And this is very different when you have from the sector-based analyses that we typically see. However, there is an additional point to take into account when we look at value chains. There are always restrictions, and by that I mean bottlenecks or obstacles that prevent the value chain from achieving its desired targets. If we look at specific examples from the past decade in various countries in our region, generally speaking, studies and diagnostic assessments analyze each link and propose an improvement plan for each of the links without really identifying which link contains the restriction. Thus, when you improve all of the links at the same time, the restriction still remains. The investment leads to improvement, but not the desired impact. There is a loss of profitability, and so there's less efficiency. Slide 4 shows us the points we need to take into account before we start developing an improvement plan. Then at the top you have the structure and functioning. Then you have organization or governance. Then you have to define a 5-year objective. Then after that, there is a diagnostic assessment to determine whether the objective was achieved. And lastly, you identify the restrictions. When you analyze various value chains, where there's cooperation involving different organizations, we see that the main difficulties lie in the following areas. Structures that are incomplete is one. 2, there is a lack of a governance plan. 3, that means that objectives aren't very clear. And 4, the restrictions are not identified. All of this means that national strategies should focus on the following. Public policies should not focus on sectors. They should focus on value chains. Governance is another area. There needs to be public-private coordination in governing these structures. or entities. Prioritizing. This approach needs to be prioritized in value chains, such as agribusiness, so that when you improve efficiency, you also create jobs and encourage local development. Local supply is another area. It's important to identify where local supply or regional supplies can cover these needs. Territorial competitiveness or regional competitiveness. Policies should be strengthened in order to improve general environmental conditions, as we saw in Axis 3, infrastructure, logistics, innovation, financing. With respect to cooperation, here's where the focus should be. Again, efforts should be focused on prioritized regional value chains. There should be an overarching shared vision to help provide technical assistance. There should also be harmonization. Technical assistance is required there to address asymmetries in specific value chains. Common targets, providing assistance so that regional objectives can be defined for value chains that produce similar products. This presentation is in my PowerPoint, which is available to all of you. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bertero, for pointing out what value chains are and where our focus should be. We will come back to you also with some questions at the end. Our third panelist joining us here in person this morning is Mr. Luke Kosumbo, lead economist at DAY. Mr. Kosumbo specializes in economic competitiveness, private sector development, and investment facilitation. He has supported governments and multilateral partners in building enabling environments for sustainable trade and industrial growth. He will share insights on how partnerships between the public and private sectors can strengthen logistics, infrastructure, and human resource readiness in the Americas. Mr. Kosumbo, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me and for your time. Yes. I've provided a slide deck here, just a few slides, 5. I'll talk to them and walk through a little bit about sort of a case study that DAI has had the pleasure to be a part of in Guyana, in Georgetown, Guyana. We, in partnership with ExxonMobil Corporation and its partners in Guyana, have had the pleasure of managing, designing, setting up and managing an enterprise development center in Guyana that really has and continues to serve as a national hub for supplier development and SME competitiveness for the country, specifically focused on the energy industry in that country and the supply chains that feed into the industry. So what does that national hub role mean in practical terms? It means essentially, as you can see on the slide, really, it serves a role to connect local companies, local suppliers, with large oil and gas companies and their international contractors, buyers, so to speak. As well, it serves as a capacity building role for local businesses in Guyana to help them both identify gaps and improve or address those gaps so they can meet international standards as required by many of these buyers, so that is large multinationals, which are purchasing goods and services in Guyana now. And then finally, the center has increasingly taken on a role as a neutral platform to host and entertain public and private sector dialogues on advocacy and policy issues. And so that is taken the shape in the form of speaker series, annual speaker series with important people from within the industry, but globally, and then and other various events where both industry leaders and government regulators and such can convene and address key issues that are relevant to the to the industry and its supply chain. A bit about the design and methodology. DAI was very fortunate to be a part of this process, designing how the center would work. And some of the key aspects of that design that we arrived at in cooperation with ExxonMobil are listed here on the slide. But I really just want to highlight two themes that run through all of these bullets. The first is essentially we focused on the demand side of the equation. So that is to say, when we began thinking about what will the center do to upskill and integrate local businesses into regional and global value chains, we started first with understanding how much demand will be coming into Guyana's economy, what is the nature of that demand, both over time and in substance, i.e. what types of goods and services would be let out into the economy, and most importantly, what are the requirements to even compete for, win, and successfully meet that demand? So what sort of procurement requirements are there? What is it required in terms of human capacity, in terms of the capacity simply to move goods and services from point A to point B on time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that really, that understanding first of what the demand is and the requirements to it on a very detailed contractual business level informed our gap analysis, which itself allowed us to build or design the offerings that the center would provide to the local businesses. As opposed to taking a more theoretical approach to gap analysis, so that is to think, what are global best practices? What should the ideal firm have? It was really rooted in what are these new multinational, international buyers demanding? What do they need in local suppliers or in suppliers generally? And then which of those present gaps vis-a-vis local capacity, and how can we work to address? The second major theme is this data-driven continuous learning. Now that's a phrase, I understand. Data-driven, I'm sure someone's used that somewhere. But in our experience with in Guyana over the past 8 years, we really have found, we've tried to make that realized in practice. Two key facets. One is, at the outset in 2017, when we established the center with Exxon and brought it to life, so to speak, there was a rigorous quantitative and qualitative data collection and analysis process where we segmented the market in Guyana, understanding each market segment, the leading businesses in each market, and the potential gaps vis-a-vis, again, demand requirements, and then using that to design the offerings from the center. That helps us understand a tranche of businesses. And then, as is a second phase, we would move on to more for the businesses which were identified as possibly very close to being integrated into the supply chain. Either they had the existing capability or were really only with minimal upskilling or capacity building could be pulled into the supply chain, provided a more detailed firm-specific assessment of those specific firms to really essentially identify custom trainings for those specific firms to help them get into the supply chain in the near term. So again, we did that at the outset in 2017. We could have let it lie, but the important thing is that the approach to the center is not a single one-time data analysis exercise to inform the center's offerings. We repeated it every 2 to 3 years. We refresh the data. We understand how the supply chains and the local capacity, as well as the demand, will evolve over time, and then tailor the center's services accordingly. So this approach can be seen here in sort of maybe I could have created a time graph, but in this sort of time-lapse approach to looking simply at the service offerings from the center. 3 years after its inception, by 2020, it was offering 3 different types of supporting services to local businesses, as listed here at the top of the slide. 2 years later, as the Guyanese economy really, quite honestly, boomed, the oil and gas sector expanded, the demand for upskilling was increased, of course, in terms of quantity, but also in terms of sophistication. Businesses, as the center did its work, integrated local firms into the supply chain. As those firms matured, they had different training needs. So we saw basically, not only did we need to provide different services, and which can be seen in this sort of wheel graph over here on the right, but the focus of them became more and more sophisticated. Examples: training overall moved from more rudimentary courses like supply chain management to more targeted training courses like financial management, costing advice and training, as well as there was a shift generally away, in a general sense, relative sense, from training to mentorship. And we're providing more mentorship that is ongoing, iterative interactions between the center and specific local businesses to help them achieve international certifications. It began with ISO 9001 by 2020, but that broadened to health and safety management, API, which is an oil and gas industry certification, and then various project management, international project management certifications. Again, these, as the needs evolve from the local supply base and local suppliers, then the center was able to pivot. Achievement and impact, it has the same sort of trajectory as could be seen in this expansion of services from the center. In our opinion, this has been an incredible success. Guyana's economy in 2017, 2015, before the discovery or production of oil, really was quite small. Now has experienced blistering growth, year-on-year growth, and it's still, there are not, millions and millions of businesses. It's a very small economy in business terms, and the center has been able to move 850 plus local suppliers into the oil and gas chain over a period of 8 or so years. Again, also being able to form joint ventures and partnerships between local and international companies, and moving companies through, select companies of course, not everyone, select companies through mentorship programs so that they can reach international certification. Finally, just sort of lessons learned stepping back. Oh, did I too much? Just lessons learned stepping back, sort of what are the key takeaways from our perspective. There we go. Really, one, expectation management is key, and that should be done basically, in starting a venture like this, trying to link local to global, local businesses to global value chains should start early as possible, especially if there is an anticipated large demand surge or large, major investments to be made in the country. You want to, shape the narrative is a political consulting term, but what you want to do is really establish a clear and factual basis on what that new business opportunity will really require of local businesses. It is not going to be manna from heaven for many businesses. You will have to work and strategize as a business would normally do in a traditional market to earn and win this new possible work. And it will require creativity, effort, and such and such. Second is the demand-driven focus that we have taken here in Guyana, we thought paid dividends. That allows the center to really focus on gaps in both businesses and the larger supply chains that are real and immediate and of relevance to the buyers, the oil and gas companies, who actually would be tendering this work and injecting, in economic speak, new demand into the economy. And flexibility is key. Flexibility of the center to adjust its programming over time has really allowed it to stay relevant to the local businesses in the economy, as well as obviously to the buyers themselves, because more adept and adroit capacity building of the local suppliers results in more competitive supply chains, which is a better business proposition for oil and gas companies and their contractors. And then finally, the having coordination and buy-in, really buy-in from both sides, the demand and the supply within a market for the center is critical. That is to say, ExxonMobil and its partners, most importantly, bought into the idea of the center. Obviously, they support it, and to this effect, they would essentially, work to push down their contracting chain requirements to use local suppliers in certain instances, if certain conditions are met. That is to say that they're skin in the game for both the local suppliers and the buyers in the local market. So anyway, those are the key sort of takeaways we have from our experience. Obviously, every unique context is different, but we feel like this model that's been sort of pioneered in Guyana is replicable in many other areas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kazumbo. I can add that indeed, I visited the center in April actually this year. So I have first-hand experience because in addition to my job as ambassador, I'm also chair of a strategic group for oil and gas policy in Suriname, writing a final report on for the next 25 years what we should do. And we studied this center and it is really working very good. So we are contemplating on doing something similar. Okay, thank you all for these presentations, which have been very interesting. I will now give the floor for some questions and to the panelists. So this is not yet the dialogue, this is just questions to the panelists and interaction with them. Do I see a list? I think Uruguay and Argentina. I give the floor to Uruguay first. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to congratulate you on chairing this group and bringing this topic to our attention. I'd also like to thank all of the presenters for what information they provided us about value chains and how we can add value to production in our countries. I wanted to give a short presentation of our Ministry of Industry. The minister is here with us, and she'd also like to say a few words. I'm not sure if this is a good time to do that or if we should wait. Thank you.
I suggest that we do it when we start with the dialogue, because this is for the questions to the panelists. Yes, and then she will get the first chance when we start the dialogue.
Perfecto, esperamos. Gracias.
Great. Thank you very much, Chair. Then we'll hold off. Thank you.
Floor now to Argentina.
Gracias.
Thank you, Chair. Allow me also to congratulate you on taking this initiative to bring these topics to our attention. I'd also like to welcome the minister from Uruguay. Before I ask a few questions of the panelists, I first wanted to state that the Americas need to strengthen regional value chains in order to promote economic development, and the various areas that were raised by the presenters were extremely relevant in that vein. For the Americas, integrating our value chains depends on having maritime linkages that connect the Atlantic, the Caribbean, and the Pacific. And for Argentina, having linkages between inland waterways and deep water ports. Here I'd like to underscore the important work being done by the Inter-American Committee on Ports, which is one of the entities that has made the most concrete progress for our countries. And now let me move on to my questions, if I may, Chair. And these questions are for any of the panelists. If you had to prioritize 2 or 3 targets in order to lower logistics costs in the short term, 1 or 2 years, what would those be? And what long-term reforms cannot be put off any longer? Second question, what value-added services in the port sector would you prioritize in order to attract immediate private investment, and how can those be scaled up later on? Last question, what certification mechanisms are you familiar with that would allow small logistics firms to participate in value chains without creating heavy barriers to entry? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for these questions. There are 3 questions. Maybe each of the panelists can take on one of the questions. Ms. Fernandez-Stark, do you want to speak to one of these questions?
Sure. Thank you for the questions. They're not easy because every country is trying to achieve the same. Voy a hablar en español.
I'll switch to Spanish. We're talking about infrastructure, and in the short term, we need to have a combination of actions over the short, medium, and long term because infrastructure requires long-term thinking. However, when we talk about soft infrastructure, you may be able to enhance that in the short term. And that boils down to human capital. How do we prepare our staff to address these issues? This is often a bottleneck rather. So training for staff, especially when it comes to products that are going to be exported from a country, that training is really important. We also need to train them so that they have a better understanding of the industry as a whole and so that they know which products are going to be imported into a country. That's relevant to the business or sector that they're developing. For instance, if you want to manufacture a telephone, you need various parts. And if the person in charge of that is not familiar with how everything works, what is imported into the country, the parts rather, and the inputs, then that can create a bottleneck. So there also needs to be work with customs offices to facilitate those procedures. But prior to that, you need political will. With political will, change can be affected rapidly. I was having a discussion recently with the Dominican Republic. They were able to improve their systems very quickly. They were able to create a specific system that had clear targets, and that helped them improve their ports as a whole. So that would be my answer. Having those short-term measures that you can develop relatively quickly with, of course, there being political will and the right institutions in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bertero, do you want to add something to this?
Sí.
Yes, then thank you for the questions. I believe that one tough question is that for productive structures, particularly if we're talking about SMEs, it can be difficult when countries are large, like Brazil or Argentina, where the logistics are more challenging and add significant costs. Argentina in recent years has had a free zone project underway where companies located further inland can have a presence in those free trade zones, and it enables them to become more price competitive in order to join global chains, either as suppliers to large corporations or even to produce final products. The experience has been great, but there's something missing. Those free zones need to be connected because those linkages would enable movement of products between the zones, but not just within the country, but to connect with hubs that exist in other countries of the region, Uruguay, Bolivia, Paraguay, Chile, just to mention the ones that are closest to Argentina. That is one way to create a short-term response because the structures are there. We just need to network these sites. Now, if I may, I wanted to say something else. It's one thing to talk about supplier development for large companies, and another thing is to arrange them in a way that they can work as value chains. Our country's public policies are geared to sector vision. If we're going to talk about value chains, we need to change the discourse and the focus. And if there's any luck, we'll be able to work more with that approach. But right now, we're still working with sector approaches that aren't really helping enhance those value chains. So we can take advantage of the existence of these free production zones or free zones. They have different names in different countries, but I think that is an option for the short term since the infrastructure is already in place. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Kosumbo.
Thank you. Yes, my experience on this topic, port infrastructure and logistics, is probably not as extensive as my colleagues, my other experts here on the panel. But I have done some recent work in the Caribbean on this topic. And I would think, just to take the first question really, on the sort of the 2 or 3 targets to lower logistics costs in the short term, and then thinking, longer term. Some of this is sort of maybe obvious, but straightforward logic. First, I mean, as I think Karina was saying, what are your long investments? Those are going to be human capital investments. Those are going to be industrial policy, strategic, both in terms of regulation, but also in terms of the geography of your assets, making, exactly, do you have a special economic zone, how close, how easily connected it is to your port systems, et cetera, et cetera. That's the long term. In the near term, if to the extent that it exists in the specific context you have, obviously, every port system and country is different, but it would focus on, quick wins. That is, software upgrades for PCS systems. Are your customs data collection and processing systems, are they unified? I know in certain countries they are not. And so all of this, that sounds arcane, but it actually adds up to time lost essentially for importers, exporters coming in and out of the port. Because, for instance, it will take time to verify and realign, the data being fed into the port system for clearance before they come into the port. Because on the public side, the government side, those systems take time to talk to one another. Also, there are instances where the customs and tariff regimes are not clearly, internally not clearly specified within the government systems, such that the government, are not able to give timely price signaling, essentially, to shippers. That is to say, shippers will make contracts and costings on goods coming into port, under one set of price assumptions, and we'll find that actually those tariffs, essentially some tariff schedules, will change after they actually make port. Anyway, these are unfortunate inefficiencies that we see in some Caribbean contexts that could be quickly addressed. New software systems, integrate your software systems, streamline some of these, how some of these, the data is from different people taking in customs, streamline some of this data, you can reduce costs and minimize unpleasant surprises for transshippers and other transport companies.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? Grenada, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and again, thank you for bringing this topic to the Council. 2 questions very quickly, hopefully not yet touched on. So, speaking about this renewed emphasis that we've seen on the cross-border supply chain cooperation, which was mentioned by our distinguished second panelist, and the question is, how can we better embed, how can we better insert recognition of technical and vocational qualifications into this cooperation efforts that are developing now? So that, for example, this question is so that, for example, the digitally qualified QVC certified workers in Grenada, for example, can contribute seamlessly to, let's say, logistics or ICT functions across the supply chain and say, for example, interregional and in the hemisphere. So, for example, a certified qualified person in Barbados can contribute to the chain somewhere in Costa Rica or Colombia. So that's the question. How can we better have the integration from one country, especially the smaller ones in the hemisphere, into the supply chain? And the second question on the important point raised of possible bottlenecks for integration of small enterprises. So I think more of the countries where the scale is not as large, so the smaller of the countries in the hemisphere. And where the real bottleneck for the value chain participation is not so much the production, because there is an agro and a raw material production as was mentioned here, but the cost and the complexity of complying with export standards. So in sectors like agro-processing, this is extremely important and can debar the possibility of integration into supply chain. And so health services might be another area. So, the question is, are you aware of and can speak to any pool services model for financing or for supporting joint investment in quality infrastructure, such as, maybe shared certification laboratories, as was mentioned in the experience for Guyana, but shared so that the supply chain clusters can now be of the hemisphere from the various regions, various countries altogether. Thank you.
Thank you. You didn't specify to who the questions were, so I see Mr. Bertero wants to start answering. You have the floor.
Bueno, muchas
Yes, thank you. As to the first part of the question about how to integrate value chains, I won't be speaking to the second part in certification. The smaller countries have smaller productive structures. There's a big difference between large corporations and small enterprises. And there is the objective to integrate the small companies into these value chains. And what I see is that there is a space here for governments to play a role in connecting the small companies with the large ones. The example of Guyana is an excellent one, how you have a large private company, but political actors need to play a role in facilitating this. But there is a challenge with cross-border movements, as my colleague highlighted. I want to focus on transnational asymmetries, focusing on the dairy sector, where in Latin America there was an opportunity to establish linkages and have pooled supply. But the issue is that there was legislation that would prevent the free circulation of the products because there were some sort of regulations about the products on one side or the other of the border, and that prevented integration. That can be addressed through regional political will, a desire to harmonize and standardize, because the problem isn't the product itself in the value chains. The issues are arising because of the regulatory framework. And really, it is a matter of political decision-making. But those are the obstacles that I've seen. Barriers to cross-border circulation. I'm not talking about tariffs. I'm talking about technical issues that are preventing the seamless flow of products across borders. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Fernandez Stark, you have the floor.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with Juan Jose. This is a topic regarding coordination and harmonization in both topics, in skills, because you can have portable skills. Portability of the skills will be necessary, especially for the small countries in which the private sector needs to, or it has to be a work of the educational system identifying what are the needs of the private sector. And this can be an organized meetings among small countries that they can set up these certified courses. We have seen in examples in many countries. I haven't seen that they coordinate among different countries, but within the countries. Like, for example, in Chile, there is a really important program about a skills certification in which you can be certified even in agribusiness. How do you place an apple in a tray? Receive a certification, even if you learn it in a technical and vocational school, or you can learn it in the factory on the job. So these certifications can be not only for one country, but it can be applicable to numerous countries. And then we can see this portability of skills. So that is going to require a coordination among different countries. And regarding of the products, how small companies can engage in global value chains. Okay, we have seen that this is really difficult, and the only way that we have seen is when they focus on niche program products, I'm sorry, because usually you require economies of scales. If you participate in global value chains, meaning do you need to supply the entire world with your products, or you need to compete with all the world in the products you are supplying. So if small firms focus on very niche products or services, you have chances to participate in the global value chain. So this is some of the advices.
Okay, thank you very much. And finally, I don't know if Mr. Kasumba has something to add.
Just a little bit to Karina's last point on the second question, that is, so ways to integrate and include small businesses in global value chains. I would just say, at least from the perspective in Guyana, where I have some experience, which is understandably slightly unique in the sense that we have, international demand really desiring to inject itself into Guyana, and is not roving the Caribbean, so to speak, to buying goods and services from a country at will. It really is invested in the country. But to the extent that it's applicable, the experience in Guyana is helpful, because even though ExxonMobil and its partners, these large multinationals, are in Guyana and purchasing goods and services, the hurdle for small businesses has been really, this tension between the oil companies, which really are looking for large-scale efficiencies by bundling contracts and procurement events together and making one single off procurement to their usually, they call them EPCs, they're large construction contractors who would then parcel it out. The problem is that these EPCs, these subcontractors, as well, don't want to unparcel and unbundle these procurement events. And so that desire chokes off opportunities for small businesses. This is really just sort of linking with Karina's point about, in instances where you have multinationals committed to operations in a country and committed to engaging with local value chains and supply chains, there can be a constructive dialogue by independent third parties between local business organizations and these large international buyers about where and how unbundling can occur. And so how do you, where can you reduce risk but to a tolerable extent for those buyers for specific services or goods? So that is one aspect that, especially in the oil and gas industry, the extractive industry in Guyana, that is really sort of like the key issue where a lot of these discussions about local supply chain integration occur.
Thank you all. And I want to thank the panelists for their participation. With respect to the last point, maybe we should, there is a lot of migration of skilled people, not, so the supply chains are not only goods, but it's a lot of people moving as well. Maybe we should have some special focus on those parts in a special session. Good. Thank you all for your insights and perspectives. At this stage, our panelists may be excused from the meeting. Should they need to depart, of course, you can stay. On behalf of the Council, I wish to express our sincere appreciation for the time they have devoted to joining us and for the thoughtful insights they shared with Member States. I now invite Member States to share good practices, strategies, and opportunities for cooperation that are helping to address these challenges in their countries, as well as their vision for advancing regional collaboration through the OAS. This exchange provides a valuable space to highlight national initiatives such as technical and vocational training programs, labor market reforms, and inclusive employment strategies, and to explore how these experiences can contribute to building a stronger region-wide framework for institutional and human resource readiness for trade. And I will give the floor first to the Minister Fernando Cardona from the Ministry of Industry, Energy, and Mining of Uruguay. We are honored to have you here and at this regular meeting of the Council, and we look forward for hearing your intervention.
Gracias.
Thank you once again, Chair. Sharing Uruguay's experience, we have Minister Fernanda Cardona. She has a PhD in social sciences, has extensive knowledge in the areas. She has taught law and administration and services at the National Institute of Technical Teaching, and it has 25 years of experience in public administration, was the director of our state-owned entity in UTE for the distribution of energy, and more recently was leader of the Energy Department in the ministry, and also worked as legal counsel for the Office of the President of National Telecommunications Company, and also served in a position as our power generation and distribution company. So with that, I will give the floor to our minister. Thank you.
Bueno, buenos días.
Good morning, everyone. Warm greetings to everyone here at the OAS, the delegations of the member states, and everyone attending this meeting of CD. I was listening with great interest to the technical panel today, and I believe it's a central issue to the future of our companies to strengthen regional value chains in the hemisphere. This is not just a technical issue. Based on the questions and the responses from the presenters, we see that it's a matter that's strategic to the economic development of our countries. We have an opportunity to build more resilient, more competitive, and most importantly, more inclusive and sustainable sectors for our country. Our country has strategic lines that will enable us to have a robust position in a complex geostrategic environment. And I'd like to share a summary of some key points with you today. Uruguay is a politically stable country with macroeconomic stability, advanced infrastructure. We've seen a revolutionary change in the energy matrix and in telecommunications in the country. Our location is strategic regionally. Uruguay has talent and an innovation ecosystem. And I'd like to refer to that stability as part of the culture of our country. It's one of our key traits. It has enabled us to take long-term political decisions that have resulted in these great advances, such as those I've mentioned in telecommunications and energy. 99% of the energy we consume comes from renewable sources. On average, we cover our internal demand and even export renewable energy to the neighboring countries in the region, Argentina and Brazil, and that's part of we wish to share today. We're talking about infrastructure, we're talking about sharing human talent, we're talking about connections and internationalization of such opportunities. We are working with our neighbor countries. 94% of our households have access to fiber optics. We have one of the most extensive and stable networks providing connectivity. We have undersea cables connecting us with the United States and the rest of the region. We have 2 world-class data centers and a regulatory environment that is reliable with clear rules for telecommunication services and data protection. Uruguay has centered in science and policy, and that strengthens our value chains. And that's why we're mentioning it. It prepares us to meet the opportunities posed by nearshoring in strategic sectors. We are working sustainable agribusiness, digital services, and clean energy. Yet, based on the exchange we've just heard, we also believe that our development strategy will be achieved through regional integration. We're convinced of that, and that's why we're here. And we thank you for the opportunity to share these remarks, Chair, so we can talk about the realities in our country, yet at the same time acknowledge the challenges we have as a region, infrastructure being one, regulatory frameworks, value chains, and the sharing of human talent. We face a great challenge in sharing our natural resources and our human resources through integrated development strategies. In Uruguay specifically, we're working on key points having to do with identifying opportunities for regional employment. We need quality jobs. And as I said, we have been working on value chains. We're working on an industrial policy looking ahead to 2050. This is not something that we had, but we have it now. It's an area that we need to work on. And in industrial policy, Uruguay has 95% of its businesses are MSMEs. And so we have that challenge of connecting those small businesses and cooperatives with the larger industries in the country. So that's a challenge that our country shares with the rest of the region based on what I heard. We're driving applied industry, focusing on sustainable industries. As I said, we're strengthening interagency and public-private linkages. We have a good track record here, success stories of collaborative work where we work with the private sector in developing public policy. We've been building consensus with a private-public company, and next year we will be presenting the results in a context of reciprocity and cooperation. specifically regarding regional integration and Uruguay's participation in international agencies. Uruguay right now is chairing the Brasilia Consensus, and we were going to be stepping up to similar position in SELEC. At our ministry, we have 9 offices, including telecommunications, including SMEs, mining, geology, intellectual property, industrial property, and nuclear industry. So it's a ministry with many key offices that are strategic for our country. We are leading integration in the areas of energy and digital platforms, and that is helping us work on the regional agenda. I'd like to close saying that the countries of the Americas must join forces in planning. This is an area where we very much share the views of the presenters. I believe that cooperation is vital in planning. I've said it, and some of the experts said it as well. If within our countries we may see differences between the provinces and departments, well, of course, those differences can be stark between our countries too. And so the first challenge would be to really map the region, to study the asymmetries before moving further along with regard to regional integration. We must lead and plan and develop these strategies, forward-looking strategies in different areas, identify shared targets. One of the experts said we have to complement our natural resources and human talent. Those are our great strengths and create value added. I am very grateful to have been able to speak here. I look forward to coordinating and cooperating with other countries, building more competitive and inclusive value chains. This is the first step. I appreciate the opportunity to speak here as a country. Wanted to share the message saying that our ministry is here and paying attention, and excited to speak, to also cooperate in the future. There are skills mismatches in our country. There are challenges to integration, yes, but we know that the opportunities are vast. We don't want to repeat the errors of the past with regard to international cooperation. The configuration of the value chains through nearshoring presents an opportunity, a strategic opportunity to integrate small companies, strengthen innovation. Projects and policies like these remind us that the past and the future of regional development are built through cooperation amongst states, linkages between knowledge and production, collaboration between Uruguay and the other countries of the region with a sustainable vision. So once again, thank you for letting me be here, and I would like to state my country's commitment to integrated production and fair competition across the region. Uruguay is open to all of this. And as I said before, we firmly believe that regional development can be attained through cooperation amongst all the states present here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. And everyone has heard it, so Uruguay is available to cooperate. I give the floor now to the Ambassador of Mexico.
Gracias. Thank you very much, Chair. Given the new international economic order, countries have to reposition themselves within global value chains in order to take advantage of their assets and bring their projects to scale. Mexico is moving formally towards a more prosperous economy. It has a National Development Plan 2025-2030, and within that, it's incorporated a new economic development and industrialization strategy called Plan Mexico. Economic growth needs to be translated into greater industrialization. It also involves strengthening local markets and focusing on suppliers for export chains, in addition to nearshoring with tax incentives and policies that encourage investment in strategic sectors. In January 2025, a declaration was issued to provide tax incentives to encourage investment and nearshoring of companies, as well as to build capacity of the labor force and encourage innovation. There are 10 new industrial parks that will be developed in addition to other poles to promote economic activity within various regions. In Mexico, nearshoring is being strengthened as part of a comprehensive industrialization and trade policy. Innovation and technology play a catalytic role in order to develop areas such as semiconductors and pharmaceuticals, among others. Plan Mexico goes even further. It seeks to reduce poverty and inequality through a model that encourages production and improves exports. At the same time, it transforms production entities so that they are more equitable and sustainable. With sovereignty and shared prosperity with the Mexican population and with our international partners. Mexico is building a more just economy that can better face future challenges in the Americas. We have an national and foreign investment portfolio that is over $200 billion and over 2,000 specific projects that are interested in coming into the country. Plan Mexico by 2030 wants the country to be the 10th largest global economy, with investment accounting for 28% of GDP, creation of over 1 million jobs, and development of key sectors, including the automotive sector, aerospace, and pharmaceuticals, among others, which is another initiative. 50% of public procurement must be local. That's another goal. We also want to reduce the time that it takes to bring in investment, and we want to have more technical experts so that environmental sustainability can be promoted. 30% of MSMEs need to have access to credit. This strategy has started to bear fruit already. Foreign direct investment as well as exports grew in 2025 compared to previous years and reached a historic high of $34 billion in the second half of the current year. And this is the 5th year that we've seen this increase, and we've also seen this in other sectors. Mexico believes that the positive effects of nearshoring and value chains can be a reality in the Americas if we have comprehensive strategies that aligns our industrialization with aspirations of our countries and the regions, while at the same time promoting equitable economic growth that leads to more resilience. This strategy is also focused on building key infrastructure, promoting intra-regional trade, investment, exports, and driving technological innovation and human capital. The goal also is to achieve a higher level of financing and cooperation at an international level in order to promote regional integration and sustainable development. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ambassador. We now give the floor to the representative of Panama.
Buenos días.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. Panama recognizes that an interconnected, constantly transforming world has an impact on value chains. This is a decisive factor for our economies. Nearshoring is an opportunity and can help attract investment as long as countries are able to close gaps and address issues with respect to infrastructure, logistics, and human capital. We have made the commitment to develop standards and infrastructure that will strengthen our national capacities so that we can provide services as required by regional integration. We are focusing on strategic sectors in this regard. The government of Panama is strengthening its position as an international logistics hub. We have multinational companies that are quite numerous. This offers a competitive framework with free trade zones, frameworks, and special regimes that can reduce operational costs by 20% for companies. Our experience as a region with respect to economic competitiveness depends on our ability to develop adaptable value chains. To address this challenge, Panama has a regional roadmap to promote digital interoperability between countries and to develop MSMEs. It is only through cooperation that we can have trade agreements, exchange of best practices, and technology transfers. That will help us strengthen our value chains throughout the region and make them more resilient given the changes in our labor force. Thank you.
Thank you, Panama. And I give the floor now to the Ambassador of Brazil.
Obrigado, presidente.
Thank you very much, Chair. Brazil thanks you for choosing this theme for this meeting, and we'd like to thank the presenters as well. It is important to focus on competitiveness and to promote development in trade. Technology transfers are also important. It's also important to reduce labor informality with an eye to social progress. We must also work on other areas. Nearshoring in the Americas should be an instrument for inclusion and institutional strengthening as well. Brazil has a national plan. It prioritizes the strengthening of value chains with specific initiatives that focus on the economy, inclusion, carbon reduction, and boosting production. We have also made great strides in the digital sector, which will also help strengthen logistics chains. We have also worked to improve port management, which boosts foreign trade. We are developing key areas including critical minerals, semiconductors, among others. Brazil is in the process of creating a nearshoring center which will help improve the technologies needed in industry. We have also looked at our energy matrix to incorporate more renewable energies and reduce CO2 emissions. Health is another area we're working on through biopharmaceuticals, among others. Brazil has also created dynamic hubs to address digital issues, and we are strengthening logistics chains that will also help promote AI. There are also challenges related to climate change, and it's important to look at what renewable energies can do, particularly in certain areas. It would be helpful for the OAS to create opportunities to exchange best practices so that countries in the Amazon area can receive assistance. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ambassador, and I give the floor now to my dear colleague from Costa Rica.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to give special thanks to you, Ambassador, Chair, for including this theme on today's order of business. I'd also like to thank all of the panelists for their very interesting presentations. Allow me also to thank the Ministry of Industry, Energy, and Mining of Uruguay for being here with us, Minister Fernanda Cardona. We know that various geopolitical, health, and factors and logistics factors have made it clear that value chains can be vulnerable. Reconfiguring these value chains is, for Latin America and the Caribbean, a strategic way to attract investment, diversify our exports, and create more quality jobs. Costa Rica has been moving in this direction. We have a national strategy to attract foreign investment. We also have a national strategy on employment and human talent for 2023-2027. This involves creating solid institutions, improving our democracy, and opportunities for training and learning. We have over 600 multinational companies in our country in value-added sectors such as medical devices, AI, ICTs, and corporate services. They contribute significantly to employment and exports. However, translating these opportunities into concrete benefits requires a regional vision, as we've heard time and again in the presentations and in the very interesting questions from the distinguished representatives. A coordinated vision that overcomes these isolated approaches and addresses as a whole these structural challenges that we are dealing with. In this regard, and as we've said on previous occasions, we are well aware that the success of nearshoring and how that relates to value chains does not depend exclusively on national efforts. It requires a regional, innovative, dynamic approach that is consistent and more coordinated. To that end, Costa Rica believes that the Executive Secretariat for Integral Development, SETI, can play a key role in creating catalytic efforts at a regional level. First, we could have greater institutional coordination. We need to have more close coordination between the bodies of the Inter-American system, including the Inter-American Commission on Ports, the Inter-American Commission on Science and Technology, COMSEAT, among other bodies, so that we can better address and analyze relevant issues such as physical and digital connectivity, innovation, and efficiency. Secondly, there is the need to continue promoting strategic regional partnerships and greater South-South cooperation and triangular cooperation with regional organizations such as the IDB, ECLAC, among others, and with the private sector and academia, so that we can also promote technical training and knowledge through the transfer of best practices. Lastly, we reiterate the need to continue strengthening training of specialized talent. we'd like to highlight some of the important efforts by SETI and by Kim Osborne, as well as the other inter-American entities that work to foster human talent and multilingualism through technical training, working specifically with academia and youth. Chair, I'd like to echo the call that was made from the first thematic session that we had. The outcomes of this session should not be limited to mere statements. We must create a regional roadmap so that we can strengthen trade in the Americas. It is key that the roadmap include clear mechanisms for implementation, costing, monitoring, and evaluation. We'd also like to reiterate our commitment to building a continent that is more competitive, innovative, inclusive, and prepared to face the challenges of the new global economy. We'd like to express our thanks for all of the coordination that was done for the ACE competitiveness of the Americas. And there is a new phase, ACE Cordoba in Argentina, and we're very grateful that this initiative has been so successful within the OAS. Lastly, I'd like to welcome Dr. Barbara Koshwar, who is with us today. Welcome to the SETI family. She is the new director of the Department of Economic Development, and we wish you the greatest of success and all the best in your new endeavors. I thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. And indeed, we plan to have something at the end of all these sessions to have a roadmap or something that is useful. So we are not forgetting that we are working on it. I give the floor now to the Dominican Republic.
Gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you very much, Chair. The Dominican Republic would like to thank you for convening this meeting on strengthening nearshoring and hemispheric cooperation. I'd also like to thank the panelists and welcome the Minister of Industry and Energy of Uruguay. This is coming at an important time when countries of the region are trying to translate opportunities for global trade into stronger production, jobs, and economic resilience. The government of the Dominican Republic has a national strategy on nearshoring. This is a driver of industrialization and attraction of sustainable investment. The Ministry of Industry is promoting policies for specific strategic sectors, including logistics and administration, in line with our overarching targets. I'd like to underscore the national strategy to promote the semiconductor sector. This works to put our country within the microchip value chain, to promote assembly and packaging, as well as training of specialized human capital through partnerships with academia, free trade zones, among others. We are also developing the medical device sector. It is one of our largest exports and accounts for over 33% of exports in 2024. There are over 40 international companies, and this has created many direct jobs. This reflects an ecosystem focused on innovation, quality, and integration of local suppliers. At the same time, we are promoting the modernization of the textile and clothing sector so that we have higher value added segments that are more sustainable. We are also looking at other linkages regionally and creation of more formal jobs. Beyond these national achievements, the DR would like to share a few considerations that could add to some of the insights and questions that we've heard today. Countries in the region need to identify strategic niches for nearshoring and prioritize high value-added sectors such as semiconductors, medical devices, sustainable agribusiness, and digital services. It should create regional maps of opportunities to attract investment and improve production. It is also key to improve physical and digital infrastructure that we share. We need to promote technological interoperability between ports, airports, and free zones. We need to strengthen logistics coordination through connectivity agreements that will reduce maritime and air transit times. The Dominican Republic will continue to invest in this expansion and a modernization of port terminals so it becomes a regional logistics hub that is competitive. Countries of the Americas must move towards regional interoperability of single windows for foreign trade. Port community systems as well as digital customs platforms. We need common standards and data as well as shared cybersecurity standards. The DR has taken firm steps in this direction with its single window. We have a law that was adopted recently in that regard, and we have a national portal for government services which simplifies and digitizes investment and trade processes. It is also important to strengthen technical cooperation on a multilateral level in order to harmonize industrial policies, as well as joint planning for the labor force and the creation of regional platforms for technical education and strategic areas. This will allow us to train highly skilled human capital to work in the new economy. Regional cooperation must also be promoted, and we need common frameworks on certification of products and mutual recognition of standards. MSMEs can also be part of this and join these value chains effectively. The DR reiterates that nearshoring is not only an opportunity for investment, it's also a path forward to strengthen productive integration within the Americas with a focus on sustainability, inclusion, and cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you, Panama. And we will now hear from Canada.
Merci. Thank you, Chair. We'd like to thank the panelists for these excellent presentations. Canada notes that the member countries of the OAS are key partners to promote shared objectives when it comes to development and resilient value chains. We believe that infrastructure are the cornerstone of economic security, particularly to support transparent, sustainable, and resilient value chains. This is especially true for critical minerals, an area where the Americas play a critical role internationally. Canadian companies are very much invested in this, particularly in the mining sector. Canada believes that we also need to put in place complementary infrastructure to maximize the value of these products and improve economic security and resilience of value chains, with an eye towards promoting resilience.
The leading contributor of the World Bank-led Resilient and Inclusive Supply Chain Enhancement Partnership, the RISE, Canada has pledged 25 million Canadian dollars to help developing and emerging economies strengthen and diversify their critical mineral supply chains. The RISE program advances this goal by facilitating knowledge sharing, technical assistance, capacity building, and investment support. It promotes local value addition, encourages the adoption of environmental, social, and governance standards, and fosters sustainable, inclusive economic growth. Strengthening transportation supply chains collaboratively is also part of Canada's strategy to be a competitive and reliable supplier of critical goods and resources for global partners. To that end, Canada is investing in digital and data projects with partners to improve supply chain visibility, system-wide performance, and asset utilization and efficiency. Governments and industry alike can support efficient global supply chains by enabling paperless trade and digitalizing transportation and logistics services. This can be achieved through the development of national or hub-level data exchange platforms or the use of advanced data analytics, such as digital twins and artificial intelligence. Several countries have already begun digitizing their trade and transportation systems, generating multiple benefits for industry, such as faster processing and transaction time, reduced costs of doing business, especially for SMEs, better planning capabilities, and increased trade flows. Digital solutions, such as port community systems and single windows, can be expanded across borders by strengthening digital connections and aligning data standards. Broader adoptions of digital technologies in the transportation sector also contributes to climate resilience and emissions reduction, reinforcing the sustainability of infrastructure investments. CD offers a valuable platform to compare needs, opportunities, and challenges, share best practices, and align on data standards that enable large-scale data sharing across multiple jurisdictions. Canada is committed to advancing these initiatives both bilaterally and multilaterally, while embedding cybersecurity as a foundation for all collaboration to ensure our systems are trusted, resilient, and built to support seamless global movement of goods and people. Thank you.
Thank you, Canada. And I give the floor now to the Ambassador of El Salvador.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Chair. I would like to also welcome the Minister of Industry and Energy of Uruguay, Dr. Fernanda Cardona. I'd also like to thank the panelists for their very interesting presentations that provided a great deal of context. Reconfiguring global supply chains to make them more efficient is a window of opportunity for investment, diversification of production, and strengthening economic resilience. El Salvador has a strategic mission focused on promoting trade, logistics modernization, and productive investment, and digitization of processes to reduce bureaucracy and corruption. From a structural and regulatory standpoint, we have promoted some 52 laws to facilitate investment. We have simplified hundreds of processes and digitized many others. We also have other processes that take just one day or less. We also have other strategies, such as the strategy for foreign investment, nearshoring, 2023-2024, which works to attract foreign investment for processes, services, and exports. We also seek investment for supply chains that better connect with suppliers. We are also working to facilitate trade, and we have a strategy to promote digitization, protection of intellectual property rights, as well as registration of companies and inclusion of MSMEs in value chains, among others. We have an integrated foreign trade system that uses an IT system that allows exporters to use a simplified process to obtain the customs documents that they need to export their products. There are other initiatives that promote investment and work to attract other companies in various areas. We are also working to develop more opportunities, build up our tourism infrastructure, develop the digital sector, promote aeronautics, pharmaceuticals, among others. All of these efforts are accompanied by other efforts that are focused on international diplomacy and that will make El Salvador a reliable partner. Chair, we need to identify and seize opportunities and spaces like SETI in order to promote technical training, cooperation, and certification of skills so that we can address current challenges. The OAS can also support national efforts in this regard, as many of the panelists mentioned. Furthermore, we must strengthen cooperation and opportunities to exchange best practices, such as we are doing today. And this will help make this a cross-cutting dialogue across the various bodies of the organization. It will also take advantage of the various ministerial processes and other tools at our disposal. We are grateful to the chair for the opportunity to discuss this important issue to promote economic development nationally and regionally. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for your contribution, and we now will listen to the contribution of Chile.
Gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, Chair. In Chile, we see nearshoring as a way, as outsourcing to those places that are closest, which carries with it gains in terms of efficiencies and brings down costs and takes advantage of shared resources. And it's an opportunity for Latin America and Chile in particular to integrate into companies that are moving from Asia into our region. Nevertheless, we believe we can't talk about supply chains without thinking about global value chains, supply chains that connect commodities and services are a structural part of value chains. An analysis limited to logistics and production carries the risk of relegating us to producers of primary products without value added. Value chains include also the knowledge economy and marketing and other aspects that are vital to sustainable development. Strengthening our participation in these chains is part of our country's public policies. Through our regional economic and trade agreements, we've always sought to empower our MSMEs and bring them into these chains with preferential treatment and diversification of exports, bringing higher value-added investments and other such aspects. We focus on agribusiness, food, mining, forestry, and metallurgy, and seeking to expand into pharmaceuticals, cosmetics, and other areas. There are regional investments to attract investment through nearshoring and friendshoring, but efforts thus far have been limited. Capital flows have focused on larger scale areas with stronger infrastructure. We need to leverage the opportunities. There are common and shared challenges in terms of infrastructure, regulatory fragmentation, some of those issues having been addressed during the presentations this morning. Chair, addressing these constraints requires coordination of cross-border policies. This was highlighted this morning as well. City is the ideal forum for encouraging effective cooperation in this area. But there's ALADI as well, or the Alliance of the Pacific, which Chile is a party to, and that could help to develop joint strategies to facilitate regional productive integration. Investing in such coordination is vital. We must move towards interoperability, shared logistics backed by regulatory reform, political will, and backed by the necessary investments to make this happen. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Chile, and we We'll listen now to contribution from Peru.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, Chair. Peru also would like to add its thanks for your having called this meeting to address a matter of great importance to our economy. Special thanks to the panelists that accompanied us this morning. As we heard throughout the morning, our region has an opportunity to position itself as a reliable partner in the reconfigured world commerce, addressing gaps in infrastructure, logistics, governance, and human capital. In this context, Peru has been promoting policies for productive diversification, bringing together the private and public sector to join forces in digitization and inserting our companies into higher value-added value chains. I'll highlight 3 initiatives that highlight these efforts. First of all, the National Innovation Program in Agriculture and Fishing, which brings together research centers and companies to strengthen competitiveness and traceability in fisheries, for instance, which has great export potential. Platforms for SMEs to strengthening their participation in textiles, leather, and agribusiness will facilitate quality certification and the fulfillment of international standards. And in the area of connectivity, the bio-oceanic corridor is connecting the high plains with the coast through multimodal transportation, enhancing competitiveness of products from the southern Andean region. These experiences show how strengthening local capacities and regional cooperation can translate into productive resilience and inclusion opportunities for MSMEs. Peru reiterates its commitment to the efforts of city and SETI to coordinate policy for capacity building and productive integration. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and I give the floor now to the Ambassador of Grenada.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Excellencies, panelists, colleagues. Grenada is pleased to contribute to this timely dialogue on capacity building for nearshoring and enhanced supply chain participation. We thank you, Chair, for focusing today's exchange on best practices and national actions that can be shared and scaled across our region. For a small island developing state like Grenada, integration into regional and global value chains is a practical necessity, a necessity for growth, for resilience, for employment, so it's not simply a policy matter or abstract. By meaningful integration, we know we do not aspire to something of a dream. It is something that must be underpinned by deliberate national choices, institutional reforms, and indeed strategic diplomacy. Allow me therefore in this regard to share a few specific measures that Grenada has undertaken to improve our readiness for value chain participation and nearshoring attraction. In port management reform and trade facilitation, our government has launched a comprehensive modernization of Grenada's principal seaports operations. Through a recently concluded public-private partnership assessment, we are preparing to attract strategic investment to upgrade cargo handling, digitize customs operations, and expand cold storage capacity, all aligned with regional trade standards. This effort will not only improve efficiency, but also reduce the cost and the time of doing business across the borders. In investment framework and sector prioritization, the Grenada Investment Act provides a clear, transparent, legal framework for foreign direct investment. We offer equal treatment regardless of nationality, full registration or repatriation, full repatriation of profits, and protection from expropriation. Priority sectors at this time include ICT, enabled services, agro-processing, especially in cocoa, nutmeg, and chocolate, and in health services and health and wellness services, all of which have strong potential for value-added regional integration. We are currently in discussion with investors regarding shared services models for back-office processing and data centers, an area ripe for nearshoring given our stable infrastructure and our English-speaking workforce. in human capital development aligned with regional mobility, of which we spoke earlier on. The Grenada National Training Agency continues to expand its TVET offerings through the Caribbean and National Vocational Qualifications, CVQs, and also the NVQs. This year, we adopted a revised national TVET policy, that's 2024, in fact, which prioritizes workforce readiness for logistics, for sustainable tourism, for digital marketing, and for maritime services, sectors that are directly linked to regional supply chain. We believe these frameworks for mutual recognition of skills across CARICOM can serve as a base for future hemispheric credentialing systems in which we can be readily integrated. In energy costs and green transition, we are acutely aware that energy costs undermine competitiveness in many Caribbean states. Grenada has therefore accelerated efforts to transition to renewables. We are expanding solar capacity through concessional financing and actively exploring geothermal development. A reliable, affordable energy base is foundational to any successful nearshoring or industrial upgrading strategy. And so, Mr. Chair, these actions reflect some of what we're doing and also Grenada's commitments not only to national development, but to hemispheric cooperation. We strongly support the development of a regional roadmap on the city to address shared infrastructure gaps, regulatory coherence, and innovation systems. We also encourage a stronger linkage between OAS frameworks and regional financing institutions to support multi-country investments, especially in logistics, in certification of infrastructure, and in digital interoperability. Finally, Chair, I underscore that for nearshoring to benefit all, there must be mechanisms to include all states and MSMEs meaningfully. Access is critical, not just in strategy documents, but in procurement platforms, in investment missions, and in skills recognition protocols. Grenada stands ready to collaborate, to contribute, and to co-create a region where supply chain resilience and economic inclusion goes hand in hand for all. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And from Grenada, we now go to Paraguay. You have the floor.
Muchas gracias, presidente.
Thank you very much, Chair. Paraguay welcomes this particular meeting of the city, the topic being of vital strategic importance for all of our countries. We are thankful to the experts for their interesting presentations, and we've taken due note thereof. The phenomenon of nearshoring is opening a unique window of opportunity for the Americas in a global context characterized by reconfiguration of supply chains, increased digitalization, and seeking sustainability. And for that reason, our region can position itself as a stable, resilient partner. For Paraguay, nearshoring represents a concrete opportunity to diversify its production matrix and rise to the challenges of technology development. We have comparative advantages in terms of macroeconomic stability, availability of renewable energy, strategic geographic location in the heart of South America, and a predictable regulatory framework that's open to trade. We have recently developed policies for strengthening supply chains, particularly in agribusiness, textiles, pharmaceuticals, and auto parts through the integration of small and medium-sized business and productive chains, improving regional logistics, and digitizing customs, thereby seeking to enhance the competitiveness of the country's exports. It is participating in regional initiatives to promote physical and commercial connectivity like the Bioceanic Corridor, key corridors for productive integration in the Southern Cone. From our perspective, nearshoring should not be seen solely as a business trend, but rather a tool for public policy to promote decent work and technology transfer. And for this region, Paraguay believes it's vital to continue furthering capacity building, identifying gaps, promoting cooperation, and seeking complementarity amongst the countries of the region. Lastly, we reaffirm our commitment to the work of the OAS and this council and joint efforts to build more sustainable, integrated, inclusive value chains across the Americas. Thank you.
Thank you, Paraguay, and we now will listen to Ecuador.
Gracias, señor.
Thank you, Chair. Ecuador appreciates this very important dialogue. We'd like to acknowledge the presentations in particular. As many others have said, this is a vital moment in the region. The reconfiguration of global supply chains, accelerated by the pandemic and the transition towards sustainable economies, has opened a unique opportunity for productive and trade integration in the Americas. In Ecuador, this process is clearly seen in more mature sectors, aquaculture, light manufacturing, for instance. Shrimp, for instance, exports exceeded $7 billion in 2023. Processed banana, industrial fisheries with certified traceability. These are all solid platforms for attracting sustainable, diversified investments. Added to this are other higher value-added industries such as foods, bioproducts, intermediate manufacturing in free zones, where we provide logistics infrastructure in a competitive environment. And those conditions are enhanced with concrete investments in the area of connectivity. The deep water port makes Ecuador a logistics hub for the Southern Pacific. Added to this, the country is encouraging digital interoperability through the single window and ports policies, including digital transformation to facilitate trade and reduce logistics cost. On the regulatory side, Ecuador has instituted reforms to attract investment. There's a renewed system for free zone. And overall, these measures are creating a more stable and transparent regulatory framework for high-value production. Based on these experiences, Ecuador proposes working in 3 complementary areas to have more resilient supply chains. First of all, consolidate multimodal corridors connecting the Amazon, the Atlantic, and the Pacific with river and port infrastructure, with cooperation agreements and shared financing through CAF and the IDB. Have binational and sub-regional working groups to identify bottlenecks and harmonize health, customs, and transportation regulations through measurable targets. Accelerate digitalization of foreign trade through a hemispheric consortium for logistics and port interoperability to facilitate the safe transit of goods and connection between single windows. In the area of cooperation, Ecuador suggests that City act as a facilitator of best practices for logistics and trade interoperability to create linkages between digital customs platforms, a mechanism for accelerating logistics public-private partnerships in conjunction with regional banks, creating bankable projects in ports and other areas, and have a hemispheric observatory of value chains to monitor productivity, employment, and investments aligned with national platforms, which would, in Ecuador's case, be the Geo portal and the clusters agenda. These actions will enable us to move from diagnostic assessments to action to foster sustainable investment. Ecuador reiterates, Chair, its willingness to collaborate with the member states and see and SETI to ensure that these proposals can be integrated into a roadmap for strengthening the capabilities of the area. We're convinced that effective cooperation will translate into more investment, more quality employment, and a more prosperous region. Thank you very much.
Thank you for all the suggestions. And we now go to, last but not least, St. Kitts and Nevis.
Thank you, Chair. And thanks and greetings to all, including our insightful and well-learned panelists. St. Kitts and Nevis is actively positioning itself to attract nearshoring and foreign direct investment in key sectors. The most significant initiative that aligns with attracting large-scale foreign investment, a primary driver of nearshoring, is the Destination Specialist Sustainability Zone, SSZ, recently announced for Nevis. While the focus of the SSZ is on sustainable development, it explicitly incorporates elements designed to attract foreign investment and businesses, which is actually the core of nearshoring, notwithstanding the fact that it also aims to create a family-oriented residential community. This model combines economic advantages of a Special Economic Zone, SEZ, with a focus on nature and community. SEZ's chair are classic tools for attracting foreign investment and nearshoring operations. The project is expected to create thousands of jobs in long-term industries such as hospitality, logistics, and technology, signaling a push to diversify the economy that can appeal to international companies looking for a regional hub. Chair, the entire legal and promotional framework of St. Kitts and Nevis is designed to attract foreign direct investment, which serves as a powerful incentive for nearshoring companies, especially those in manufacturing, finance, and technology, to relocate operations closer to the United States. Over the past decades, St. Kitts and Nevis has made notable progress in modernizing its trade governance framework. The Ministry of International Trade, Industry, Commerce, and Consumer Affairs has prioritized international coordination across border agencies, private sector actors, and regional partners under the CARICOM single market and economy. Institutional readiness is being strengthened through mechanisms such as policy coherence between trade, investment, and industrial development frameworks, ensuring that trade liberalization aligns with domestic production priorities. Modernized trade facilitation systems, including digital customs procedures and paperless clearance platforms in collaboration with Customs and Excise Department, and enhanced legislative capacity to implement OECS and CARICOM obligations, particularly in areas such as common external traffic harmonization, the free circulation of goods within OECS, and the free movement of people within CARICOM. Also, work is ongoing to identify the legislative gaps to ensure national laws are aligned with regional trade objectives. Notwithstanding the fact that our small public service base presents challenges in retaining specialized human capital and ensuring consistent succession planning, St. Kitts and Nevis has an ongoing process, and we are committed to continuous improvement, partnership, and bold innovation. May it please you, Chair.
Thank you. And this brings us to the end of the dialogue, and I thank you for your contributions. we will take on board all of the comments and suggestions that were made to build this roadmap. We now go to item 3 on our order of business, which is the CD sectoral ministerial process cycle. And we turn to the culture ministerial process. As delegations may recall, during our previous regular meeting, this council approved a preliminary list of observers and special guests to be invited to the 10th Inter-American Meeting of Ministers of Culture and Highest Appropriate Authorities, as contained in document CD/Doc 464/25. Today, delegations have before them an addendum to the document, which contains the proposed additional list of special guests for the same ministerial meeting to be held at the OAS headquarters in Washington, D.C. on November 13 and 14 of this year. This document is presented for your consideration and approval, and I hope I saw a list of 6 special guests, or is it more? And 3 are new. So there are 6 special guests invited, and the new ones are Sil Calvert Jones, founder and artist, Tropical Realism, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Other one is the Inter-American Center for Crafts and Folk Arts from Ecuador, and then the Institute for Latin American and Iberian Studies in the US. Those are the 3, and before there were 3 others. So if there are no objections, then we will add these to the list of special guests. No objections, thank you. And then we have adopted and will invite them. Allow me to underscore the importance of ensuring ministerial level participation in this important meeting, as the presence and leadership of ministers of culture are essential to the continued strengthening of our inter-American dialogue and cooperation in this area. We now turn to the education ministerial process. I am pleased to offer the floor to Mr. Jesus Giacoman, Director of the Department of Human Development, Education and Employment, who will provide an overview of the ongoing preparations for the 12th Inter-American Meeting of Ministers of Education, including the upcoming preparatory meeting scheduled for December 9 and 10. Mr. Giacoman, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, presidente.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to present the 5 documents that you have before you, and I'll begin doing so by reminding you what the ministerial process has been for education. As you know, the Department of Human Development of SETI serves as the technical secretariat for the ministerial processes for both education and labor. In the context of the dialogue in 2013, the Inter-American Committee on Education was created as a body consisting of the ministers of education of the member states. Some of the functions of this Inter-American Committee include promoting inter-American dialogue in the area of education, provide follow-up on the summit mandates and mandates from SETI as well, and to promote multilateral activities to promote an exchange of knowledge and practices, as well as to provide technical cooperation for capacity building of our member states. In the context of the meetings in the education ministerial process during the 11th meeting of the Ministers of Education, which took place in November of 2022 with the leadership of Ecuador and Argentina, The 2022-2027 education agenda was adopted. It identified the key elements for the education sector, and the OAS approved the work plan of the Inter-American Education Committee as the result of meetings of the authorities of the committee, Ecuador, Colombia, Dominican Republic, and the respective working groups led by Peru, Suriname, and Guatemala, with support also from Argentina, Chile, Costa Rica, United States, Jamaica, and Paraguay. The work plan presents initiatives and activities to be implemented in fulfillment of the declaration and action plan adopted in the 11th meeting of Education Ministers of 2022. It defined 5 programs, each one with 3 components: 1 research, 1 professional development, and 1 technical assistance. So we sat down with the Ministries of Education and their research teams, their professional development teams, and identified the technical assistance that would be helpful in terms of sharing experiences. The program for recovery and reactivation of the education sector supports the design and implementation of public policies to address inequality gaps that have arisen in recent years through universal access policies and support for policies and programs to close education and social emotional gaps and support the teaching community. The ministers asked us to not only work on activities, but to also ensure that the activities would bring about the expected results in 2025, including having a mechanism for disseminating research findings. This document was distributed and presented to the Ministries of Education for their comment in May of this year. The critical digital literacy program, they said, also supports the ministries in analysis and reflection on the impact of digital technologies on the transformation of teaching and education in schools and all the stakeholders in the sector. It seeks to accelerate processes toward digital access, especially for marginalized populations, in order to close the gap in areas such as integration of technology in teaching, good use of the internet, preventing mental and physical health problems owing to social media and others, teacher training on technology skills, including evaluation and use in practice. The results expected are to have a hemispheric protocol on education in digital environments. That document was also distributed in May of 2025, and there was a meeting there too with ministries of education to discuss it and receive comments. The third program for strengthening the democratic principles through policy dialogue underscores the role of education as the basis for democratic engagement. The intention is to enhance institutional capabilities and human resources to create a favorable environment for developing better citizenship, promote participation and engagement of ministries of education, students, teachers, and all stakeholders to have a new generation of informed citizens who are devoted to democratic principles which unite our region. The expected outcome for 2025 is to have developed teacher training for strengthening democratic participation and develop a model curriculum to foster civic engagement by students through schools and other activities which, as you know, are in the process of being implemented. In terms of intersectoral agenda, we have 2 additional programs: the program on healthy foods and physical activity in school environments. This was coordinated with the Pan American Health Organization. The objective is to promote healthy food and physical education policies for schools across the Americas. with active participation by the Ministries of Education and Health and socializing progress, shared goals in order to share perspectives and recommendations. In May 2023, there was a call for joint proposals amongst health and education ministries. 11 proposals were received. In November, 3 of those were chosen. For healthy school environments, we're working with police on promoting physical activity. Colombia, there's a framework of action on public policies on food services for healthy diet, working there with the Bahamas. And the expected outcome for this year is to have regional guidelines on healthy food and physical education policies in school environments. In October last week, the guidelines were presented to the Ministries of Education and of Health, and the document was distributed for comment. Lastly, the program to develop skills in changing contexts, help people have a decent life and through more just, equitable systems. It promotes collaboration with the Inter-American Conference of Ministers of Labor to strengthen the interaction and linkages in skills training through public policies on accreditation, life skills, vocational training, professional qualifications, and especially for those who are in a more vulnerable position, like women and persons with disabilities and people who, not by their own choice, neither study nor work. We will soon have a basis document on training, lifelong training programs. We're working with the Ministries of Education to be able to later then meet with the Ministries of Labor. And lastly, and looking ahead to Quito, the ministerial in Quito in 2026, the Techno Secretariat prepared a white paper based on the results of the activities implemented under each of the 5 programs in order to provide context for the next ministerial meeting. The document sets out the worldwide and regional trends, challenges, and opportunities for action that the ministers could address in the 12th meeting of Ministers of Education to be held in March 10th and 11th of next year. The steering committee, consisting of the authorities of and the board, was developed, and using it as a basis for choosing the slogan for the next meeting, agreed on the draft agenda that was distributed today. The topics agreed on there, which you see reflected in the agenda, are educational trends for permanence, technology trends in the transformation of teaching and education, democratic participation in school environments, healthy school environments, and lifelong training in context of change. With all that background, I can now turn to the documents at hand.
So looking at the first document, which is the draft agenda that was already approved. The second one is about the preparatory meeting that will take place on December 9 and 10 virtually. The draft agenda addresses all of the points that I mentioned briefly for all of the hemispheric programs. The purpose of that meeting in December is to discuss the declaration and the plan of action, which will give the ministers an opportunity to look at the documents that will be discussed in Ecuador in 2026. So there's also a draft schedule. The meeting will start on the 9th and will end on the 10th at 5:30 in the afternoon. There are 2 documents, the preliminary draft hemispheric declaration on education and the action plan. These look at the past 10 years of the ministerial process and reflects some of the decisions that ministers of education have been taking over the years to arrive at those 5 programs and the 5 deliverables that I just mentioned. Lastly, with the preliminary draft of the Hemispheric Action Plan for Education, it uses the declaration as a basis, as well as the other deliverables for 2025 to determine implementation of the work plan or action plan. With that, I conclude my presentation, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And you have gotten a lot of information on the next meeting of the, let's see, the preparatory meeting, which prepares for the ministerial meeting in March. And the preparatory meeting is 8th and 9th of December. 9 and 10, sorry, 9 and 10. It's, yes, my sister birthday is 8, so it's always there. So if there are no comments, no objections, then we will approve this agenda, draft agenda for this meeting. And I hope that all of you will inform, of course, your ministers of education and also of culture for the other part that we dealt with. Does Ecuador wants to talk about this first? Yes? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As Chair of the Inter-American Commission on Education, Ecuador expresses sincere thanks for the ongoing support and efficient management by the Executive Secretariat for Integral Development. Thanks to that, we were able to circulate the preliminary documents for the upcoming meeting of Ministers of Education, which will take place in Quito, Ecuador, in March 2026. Today, these documents were clearly described and explained by the Director. This upcoming hemispheric meeting is an invaluable opportunity to build education systems that are more resilient, inclusive, relevant, and fully in line with the Inter-American education agenda. We would like to use this opportunity to invite all member states to actively participate in the negotiation of the Declaration and Action Plan in a spirit of openness, dialogue, and consensus. We trust that with our collective commitment, as we see in this Council, we can arrive at a shared vision that strengthens the future of education in the Americas. In addition, we encourage delegations to invite their ministers and high-level education authorities to participate at the highest level at this important inter-American meeting, which is an ideal time to promote cooperation and dialogue, and also a good time to open our arms and invite all of you to discover the many wonders of Ecuador. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I think that we can approve the agenda, otherwise there will be no meeting for that. So it's approved. Now we go to item 4 of our order of business. And this is a signing ceremony of the Memorandum of Understanding of the Undergraduate Student Exchange Program by the OAS Executive Secretariat for Integral Development and the Permanent Representative of Brazil to the OAS, Ambassador Benoni Belli. Distinguished delegates, we now move to this very special segment of our meeting, the signing ceremony. As many of you know, the Executive Secretariat for Integral Development, through its OAS Scholarship and Training Program, has long supported the efforts of member states to expand access to inclusive and quality education, recognizing that education lies at the very heart of human capital development, also of socio-economic empowerment and the advancement of social inclusion, justice and prosperity across the hemisphere. In 2024, the OAS and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the República Federativa del Brasil signed a memorandum of understanding with the purpose of establishing and promoting the PCG Caribbean Scholarship Program. PCG is a modality of the Brazilian Program for Exchange Students, an official program of the Brazilian government. The Programa de Estudiantes Convênio de Graduação is one of Brazil's most enduring and successful educational cooperation initiatives. For decades, it has opened doors for thousands of young people from across the Americas to pursue higher education in Brazil's prestigious universities, strengthening not only academic excellence but also cultural and human ties among our nations. Every year, the OAS PCG Scholarship Program co-sponsors up to 20 scholarships through the Partnership Program for Education and Training to citizens of the member states in the Caribbean countries. And those countries, you know, are all those who are here. Last year, the OAS Scholarship and Training Programs awarded 16 scholarships, which included 8 nationals from Jamaica, 2 from Dominica, 2 from Guyana, 3 from Suriname, and 1 from Trinidad and Tobago. The program offers foreign students free admission to pursue and complete their undergraduate studies in Brazil. Courses are available in all fields of knowledge. Together with the government of Brazil, the OAS is providing educational opportunities that embody the spirit of inter-American solidarity that defines our organization, one that transforms opportunity into empowerment and cooperation into long-term partnership. Through this renewed agreement, we reaffirm our shared commitment to expanding access to education, advancing inclusion, and preparing the next generation of leaders who will continue to build a more integrated and prosperous hemisphere. It is now my honor to invite Ambassador Benoni Belli, Permanent Representative of Brazil to the OAS, to sign together with Director Jesus Giacoman in representation of the Executive Secretariat for Integral Development, this Memorandum of Understanding. I think we can give them an applause. This is a significant moment because it means another batch of students can continue. And I give the floor now to Brazil.
Muito obrigado, senhor.
Thank you very much, Chair. I am very pleased and satisfied to sign this agreement to formalize this MOU for this program. This will enable us to formalize this program and have greater participation from countries of the Caribbean. This strengthens also our shared responsibility towards education in the Americas. This agreement, known as PEC-G, will enable foreign students to receive university diplomas at some of the best institutions in Brazil in areas such as engineering, and they will have access to many higher education institutions throughout the country. This is part of our bilateral efforts on education. Now, this is also an opportunity to overcome other barriers and to bring in more countries. This will allow a wide range of students to sign up and to carry out some of these formalities at Brazilian embassies throughout the Caribbean. This program will allow students to study a wide range of subjects, science, medicine, engineering, among others. We are very pleased that the majority of students thus far are women. After training, students will return to their countries of origin and apply the knowledge they acquire to their respective societies. We will be publishing the results of this program. I believe it will be of great interest to students in the Caribbean, and we are grateful for the collaboration and support of the Permanent Missions and the OAS, which will help us promote this program in target countries. Lastly, we thank Kim Osborne, and we also thank the various sections of the OAS that have offered continued support and partnership, and we hope that this program is even more successful in building ties through education. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador, and also thank your country on behalf of CD and SADI and the OAS. We now will go to the last item on our order of business, and that is other business. And I open the floor to delegations who wish to raise any additional matters for the Council's attention. No one. Okay. If there are no further comments, then I remind you that the next regular meeting of CD will be convened in due course, and details will be submitted later. Thank all of you for today's meeting, and I think in terms of time we are doing very well. And see you next time, and have some great Guatemala coffee.